The first thing you notice about handcuffs isn't the weight, it's the bite. Cold steel digging into your wrists while you're standing on dirt your own family paid for in blood and sweat. And the worst part, the woman filming it smiling wasn't a criminal. She was the president of a homeowners association. It was a humid Friday evening in East Texas, that thick air that smells like mesquite and rain that hasn't decided to fall yet. I was in an old fishing hat, unshaved t-shirt, stained with lake water, just trying to catch a couple bass off my dock. Then a spotlight hit my face and a voice I recognized said, "Sir, hands where I can see them." That voice belonged to Deputy Ethan Park, my brand new rookie. He didn't know he was about to cuff his own sheriff. Behind him, parked like she owned the county, was Linda Whitmore beside her pearl-white SUV. White pantsuit, perfect hair, phone held up like a weapon. She was talking loud on purpose, performing so the whole world would hear her version first. "Thank God you're here," she said loud enough to echo off the water. "He's been living out here, trespassing, and he's got weapons." I blinked at her. Then I looked at Ethan, who was trying so hard to do the right thing his hands were shaking. "Ethan," I said quietly, "shine that light a little lower." He did, and the beam hit the badge clip on my belt. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might pass out, but the cuffs were already on. That's how my war with Pinebrook Estates started, in a click of metal on my own 47-acre ranch. This land was my quiet. My grandfather bought it back when people still sealed deals with a handshake and meant it. When my marriage ended, no drama. Just two good people realizing they work better as friends, I let my ex keep the house in town, and I moved back here full-time. It was the only place where the county couldn't follow me home. Then Pinebrook Estates sprouted up along my eastern property line like a manicured fungus. Fresh sod, identical mailboxes, porch lights on timers, and the kind of neighbors who act like nature is an eyesore. And right at the center of it all was Linda Whitmore, new to the area, old at control. The first time she came onto my dock, she didn't introduce herself like a normal human being. She brought a little entourage like she was a politician doing a photo op. Gary Bowers, a yes man, with a permanent worried squint, and Denise Caldwell clipboard tight to her chest like it was a shield. Linda held out a plastic sleeve zip-tied to a laminated notice. "Violation," she said in that sweet voice that's only sweet because it's sharpened underneath. "Unsightly temporary structures. Non-conforming recreational activity. $500. I stared at the paper, then at her, then back at the paper. "Ma'am," I said, "my property predates your homeowners association by decades. Your bylaws don't touch me." Her smile didn't move her eyes. "Paperwork gets lost. Rules are universal. And we wouldn't want the county hearing about transients. Would we?" There it was. Not a threat you can quote in court. Just a suggestion delivered like perfume. I could have flashed my badge right then and ended it. But I didn't want to be that guy, the sheriff swinging authority, because he got annoyed by an HOA queen. So I stayed quiet. I figured let her stomp around a bit. She'd get bored. I underestimated how much free time bored people have. Within a week, my driveway became a viewing platform. I'd get home from a shift and see a sedan parked on the county road, engine running, camera lens pointed toward my porch. Sometimes it was Gary, sometimes Denise, sometimes someone new like Pinebrook had a rotating schedule for spying. They logged my life like it was a crime scene. When I fished, when I lit a fire, when I brought groceries in, when I fell asleep with the porch light off. Then came the paperwork blitz. Complaints to county planning environmental offices, the Water Commission alleging my camp setup was a hazardous waste site threatening Pinebrook's pristine groundwater. It would have been funny if it wasn't working, because every agency has to investigate, which meant my days off got eaten by apologetic inspectors walking around my perfectly normal ranch checking boxes, then leaving with that same look like they knew it was nonsense, but their hands were tied. That's when I asked Ethan to run a background check on Linda just to satisfy a bad feeling I couldn't shake. He pulled up addresses in Arizona, Nevada, then another one. Every stop followed the same pattern. Linda moves into a development, takes over the homeowners association, finds people into the ground. Then somehow those homes get bought up cheap by investment groups that don't exist for long. That's not neighborhood pride. That's a business model. So I started asking around. Not officially, just listening. at the diner, in the hardware store, at the gas station, where everybody knows everybody. A widow named Evelyn Price had been fined for unauthorized gardening, not weeds, flowers. Another guy, Caleb Ross, a young mechanic, got a legal threat for working on his own classic car in his own driveway because it created an automotive nuisance. They weren't enforcing standards. They were hunting soft targets. I went home that night with my jaw clenched so tight my teeth hurt, not because Linda annoyed me, because she was hurting people who couldn't fight back. And then she decided to put me on display. She posted pictures of my campsite on the neighborhood app with captions like, "Is homelessness contagious?" People in Pine Brook started calling my office asking if the vagrant near their fence line was dangerous. Then came the 911 call. Aggressive trespasser. Possible weapon. Refusing to leave. She used those words because she knew what they do to a dispatcher's tone. And she got exactly what she wanted, my own deputy rolling up ready for a confrontation. Standing there in cuffs, hearing Ethan stammer apologies as he recognized me, I felt this ugly mix of heat and cold. Heat from anger, cold from the realization that Linda wasn't just petty. She was willing to use the system like a club. After Ethan got the cuffs off, Linda didn't apologize. She didn't even pretend. She just kept filming like the humiliation was the point. I stepped closer. Careful, calm, the way you stay calm when you're dealing with someone who wants you to explode on camera. "Linda," I said, "you just filed a false report that could have gotten somebody killed." Her smile twitched. "I feared for my safety." "You feared for your property value," I said. "Different thing." She pivoted immediately because that's what people like her do, straight into offense. Complaints to the county commissioners. Accusations I was abusing power. Demands I be suspended pending investigation. And for a minute, it worked. I walked into my office the next morning and saw the emails, the whispers, the careful distance people keep when they smell controversy. I sat there staring at the wall, thinking about how fast a reputation can turn into a headline. I won't lie, there was a moment I considered dropping it. Not because she was right, because the optics were a trap. The second I pushed too hard, she'd scream "corrupt sheriff," and half the internet would nod along without knowing a single fact. That's the thing about people like Linda. They don't win with truth. They win with noise. Then my ex-wife, Sarah, sharpest attorney in 3 counties, showed up at my kitchen table with a stack of property records and a look that said, "Sit down." She didn't start with comfort. She started with math. "Jack," she said, tapping a permit map. "Pine Brook's original zoning required a 50-foot buffer from existing agricultural land, meaning you. Linda's house is over the line by a lot." I leaned in and my stomach dropped. "She's sitting on a flood easement," Sarah said. "If a surveyor measures this officially, her mansion becomes an illegal structure." That's when the whole mess snapped into focus. Linda wasn't trying to clean up the neighborhood. She was trying to bury a lie worth millions. And once cornered, she escalated like a rat in a barrel. My tires got slashed. A note showed up on my gate, short, ugly, spelled like it came from someone who hates dictionaries. Then Linda hired a security consultant named Trent Maddox, a disgraced ex-cop built like a vending machine. Trent parked at my fence line at night engine, idling headlights blasting my porch, waiting for me to step outside angry, waiting for a self-defense situation he could sell. One Sunday afternoon he walked onto my property like he owned it. I was at the grill. He didn't even look at the steaks, just dropped a duffel bag on my picnic table and unzipped it. "Cash. 50 grand, he said. You relocate. You stop asking questions." Then he leaned in, voice low, like we were sharing a secret. "Accidents happen out here, Sheriff. Houses burn. Brakes fail. Dangerous world for a man living alone." I didn't shout. I didn't swing. I didn't even tell him to leave. I let him talk, because I was wearing a body cam. Every word, every hint, every threat, clean audio, clean video. He thought he was intimidating me, but he was building my case for me. Sarah dug deeper and found the money loop shell companies buying the homes Linda pressured onto the market tied back to her family. Distress created on purpose. Then profit when the pressure suddenly stops and values rebound. That's not an HOA problem. That's racketeering. So I called an old contact at the FBI Special Agent Mark Ellis. I laid out the records, the footage, the pattern across states. He watched the Trent clip once, then looked up at me and said, "This is RICO." After that, we didn't charge in like cowboys. We set a trap. Linda scheduled a public hearing with the county commissioners to label my ranch a nuisance. She wanted me embarrassed, isolated, forced to sell. She packed the room. News cameras. Residents lined up like they were attending a trial. Linda sat up front in a white dress, hands folded, face arranged into concerned citizen. When her turn came, she stepped to the mic and gave a performance so smooth you'd think she rehearsed it in the mirror. "I just want safety," she said, voice trembling on cue. "This man refuses to follow community standards. He's living like a transient on the edge of our children's homes." Her lawyer followed, pointing at me like I was a stain. "We request immediate suspension pending investigation." Then it was my turn. I walked up carrying one thick binder and set it on the table hard. The sound cut through the room. "This isn't about a tent," I said, steady and flat. "This is about fraud and an illegal development that's been protected by intimidation." Sarah pulled up the zoning map on the screen. The buffer line, the overbuild, the flood easement, then the payments, legal fees from the homeowners association flowing into a firm tied to Linda's household. You could hear the room shift. Not gasps, more like a long inhale, the kind people do when they realize they've been lied to. Linda's face went tight. Her eyes darted to the cameras like she was trying to figure out which angle made her look least guilty. That's when the back doors opened. 4 federal agents walked in, windbreakers, bright faces blank. Agent Ellis stepped forward like he owned the air. "Linda Whitmore," he said loud enough for every mic in the room, "you are under arrest for racketeering, wire fraud, extortion, and conspiracy." For a second, she didn't move. She just stared like her brain refused to accept a world where she wasn't in charge. Then the cuffs came out, real ones this time. Steel clicked. Cameras flashed. Linda's phone finally dropped from her hand screen, still recording, as her whole little kingdom collapsed in public. And as they led her away, she tried one last time to speak, mouth opening like a reflex, until Ellis leaned in and said something quiet that shut her down instantly. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just stood there and watched her disappear through the same doors she'd walked through, thinking she could erase anyone she didn't like. Because power built on paperwork and fear always falls the same way, loud.